The Boulder City Council on February 12th voted to continue studying possible expansion of the city into the Area 3 Planning Reserve, a 493-acre parcel northeast of the city that remains largely undeveloped. The site has the capacity for up to 8,700 units of housing, making it one of the city's largest potential opportunities to address its housing shortage and create a new neighborhood. Skeptics of expanding into the area have cited the need to prioritize infill projects within city limits, the significant cost of extending city services, and the workload it would impose on city staff. And back in January, the Planning Reserve voted 4-3. There was not sufficient community need to warrant further consideration of expansion into the Planning Reserve. And the council just voted 7-2 that no, the community need exists, with Mayor Aaron Brockett and council members Matt Benjamin, Rob Kaplan, Tina Marquis, Ryan Schuchard, Nicole Spear, and Tara Winner voting in favor, and Mark Wallace and Taisha Adams voting no. Supporters frame the idea as a generational opportunity to address affordability. And with that, welcome to the House Einstein podcast. This is House Einstein podcast 107. I am Osman Parvez, and with me is Hamish Crabb.
Hello, hello. Good to be here. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We normally are recording on a Wednesday, but due to a variety of reasons, mostly blamed on an internet provider, we are delayed. But hey, that allowed us to include...
And better serving clients, we blocked off a whole day for an inspection objection as well.
That's true. That's true. Clients always come first, so that took up a lot of time on Wednesday and has a happy ending. But it also allows us to talk about this story on the Planning Reserve. And we've talked about the Planning Reserve before, but it's clearly moving forward. The momentum to develop it will never stop, so it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, in my opinion. But before we jump in too far, because that's our hot take, which comes later, let me just mention that if you are a first-time listener, this podcast is sponsored by the House Einstein brokerage, for which Hamish and I both work, but this is separate and distinct from the activities of the brokerage. The mission of the podcast is to entertain you, and the mission of the brokerage is to help you make a smarter real estate decision. If you are a client or would like to become a client of the brokerage, you can find us at houseeinstein.com. That's where you'll get customized advice specific to you on your real estate needs. If you are listening to this podcast, please don't make any real estate decisions based on anything that you hear. We're not liable for your decisions.
Absolutely.
We've advised you clearly not to make decisions. So that keeps our attorneys happy and allows us to continue forward with the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's walk through the table of contents, Hamish. What do you think?
Yeah, let's hit it.
Do you want to do it or should I?
Sure thing. I know these are largely your topics, so I'm going to try and explain them or tease them as best I can. But the closing table, we're going to be talking about when to walk away in a deal as a buyer. From Tales from the Trenches, we're going to be talking about a recent closing that we had and contrast the listing agent with another listing agent on a deal that we negotiated for not too long ago. Market conditions, will be walking through Boulder data and possibly Lafayette. We've got 5 sales from last week that we would like to talk about. One of them is a condo that I think Osman was very upset about seeing sell. He was surprised that it sold at all. So stay tuned for that one. We've got Shameless self-promotion. I'm going to say the address of our listing here. It's 927 Hover Ridge Circle in Longmont. You should check it out even before we get to that Shameless self-promotion segment. In the news, we're going to be covering power outages across the Denver metro and kind of get into Carrington events and solar storms. We're also going to talk about the 300 new homes approved for the East Boulder sub-community development. Isn't that the full name?
It's in the East Boulder Sub-Community Plan. It's 55th and Arapahoe. 300 new houses in a giant
then on top
box.
of that, it's called the Cube. But on top of that, there's the Planning Reserve update. And then Carveouts. Osman has the Alex Pretti ride that happened in North Boulder Park. And I'll be talking about solar, but I may end up talking about internet. So we'll see. With that, that's Pod 107.
Yeah, and we're going to try to keep it under 2 hours. We have meetings to run off to. And so, as always, clients come first. If we run out the clock, we run out the clock, but we'll try to hit all of these topics. And our first one is when to walk away. This podcast is sponsored by House Einstein. We serve buyers and sellers in Colorado, focusing on Boulder, Denver, and several mountain resort towns, including Breckenridge and Winter Park. Our mission is simple: help you make a smarter real estate decision. You can learn more at houseeinstein.com or our YouTube channel, where you'll find videos on neighborhoods, specific listings, and much, much more. It is so interesting how few agents talk about this topic, and instead they tend to focus almost all of their marketing on advertising listings for sale, including listings at the high end that have very low probability of selling anytime soon. They devote so much attention and time, and that's, I think, part of their marketing by association game plan, that they want to be associated with high-end listings. But really, I think what we should be advertising is our advisory services to both buyers and sellers. And knowing when to walk away from a negotiation is one of the most important things when you are house hunting, and frankly, when you are negotiating with a buyer as a seller. So depending on the price point and location and property type, the leverage in the deal, in the negotiation, changes dramatically. And that has always been the case, but it has become more extreme during downturns, which we have been in for almost 3 years. But that's not a downturn on all price ranges and locations. So what's been happening is effectively the same thing that happened in the 2008 global financial crisis. And that was a buildup of high-end inventory. So all the market pressure and change was coming from the top, where you're seeing a lot of listings not sell. You're seeing the homes that do sell for very large discounts compared to how they normally trade. And that downward pressure is meeting upward pressure from a limited supply of entry-level and mid-market houses. Entry-level buyers have some affordable housing choices, but mostly the city has focused its efforts on affordable housing in the rental market. So if you're shopping to buy, you don't have as many choices, and often there's a longer waiting list. If you qualify for affordable housing, that's the true entry. And then above that, there's the base level home that you typically see in Martin Acres and South Boulder, the 3-bedroom, 1-bath that's about 1,200 square feet that typically sells for around 800, at least recently. There's one that's under contract right now with a list price at, I think, 950 that has a bunch of upgrades. It did. I wrote about it in the newsletter that published today. That newsletter was actually written a week ago, but it published today. So what's happening in the market is this upward pressure from the top for the prices to move downward, and from the bottom there's pressure for the prices to move up, and most people are finding themselves somewhere in the middle. And what we're seeing on the ground right now is it's very common to see multiple offer scenarios, or so-called bidding wars. It's kind of a misnomer because often you get one bid, but we're seeing multiple offer scenarios in that mid-range. I've already seen 3 personally, 2 of which we were lucky enough to lock down, 1 of which we were not lucky enough to lock down. But at the higher
honestly,
end...
I think it's probably best that one went.
I didn't think it was that great of a house. You took the clients to see it, so you know more about it, but it didn't strike me as one that really deserved that much attention. But at the high point, right, at the higher end of the market, the so-called ultra-luxury segment, buyers have so much leverage to walk away. And the way you know you can walk away is to understand what people in negotiation call your BATNA, your best alternative to negotiated agreement. And when there are 10 houses or 20 houses or 50 houses for every buyer, you have a lot of opportunity to walk away because there's other houses. And so if you can't get a deal that feels good to you, you absolutely should walk away. And that's what we're seeing, $3 million and up all day long. All of last year, every time we did the analysis, it was like 8% of the inventory under contract. I think the most I saw last year might have been 11, but typically it was like 8, 7%. If we included
maybe a lower portion, but
right.
It was very slow,
It was very slow. And so this is where your agent comes in, because most buyers don't have the experience in the market to see their alternatives. And one of the things we will do with our clients is look at what's sold in the last 12 months that matched their criteria. no matter what their criteria is or what price point. Let's go down the rabbit hole and see how many houses sold last year, and then let's look through those homes on the MLS and ask ourselves, of those, let's say there's 25 houses, of those 25, how many of those would you actually have been interested in, possibly could have bought? And if the answer is maybe half, 12, there were 12 sales in the last year. We know they're not evenly distributed. They're mostly in the spring and summer. So for now, you might expect one listing every other month. And then as we move into later spring, you might get 2 listings in a month. And then if we blow the summer season and you're into the fall, you might go back to 1 listing every other month. That's probably the normal distribution for those listings that you might have considered buying. So that's not a very high number. And if this house really suits you, then you may want to go ahead and give up a little bit on the negotiation, because there may not be a better house that's waiting for you. But if the answer is 50 houses sold in the last 12 months or 70 houses, then you've got so many to choose from that you can actually let it go if it doesn't feel good where you're landing between buyer and seller on price or other contingencies in the contract. So I wanted to... Oh, go ahead, Hamish. Yeah.
I think we a while ago talked about like opportunity cost, and there's kind of a similar thing too, where it's like if you see this home coming up so rarely in the historical data, then you know that the cost of not playing ball or being aggressive on it is going to be time, right? You might not see a house like that for a very long time afterwards. This particular home, we did a very similar strategy and looked at the comps, drew a shape around the neighborhood, and found that homes with these characteristics typically went for this price range and set a hard cap, right? Like if the seller wasn't going to accept what I offered, I'm not going to get sucked into the negotiation, right?
Well, that's what your agent should be helping you do. Look through the data, see what the negotiated discounts have been, decide whether it's fairly priced or not. I think at the entry and mid-level, it's probably better to just remove the idea that you're going to get both a fantastic house and a deal, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get
the
both.
Discount.
If you're getting a fantastic house, it's probably priced right. You're probably paying fair value for it or more, because there may be somebody else who recognizes that house is really attractive and doesn't want to waste more time shopping, wants that house and is willing to pay a little more to get it. So at the higher end, though, it's a completely different story. And this is where the data will show you that, if your agent will take the time or has the skills or both to show you that. And what you really should be careful with is working with an agent that, rather than showing you the data to back their position on whether they think, look, inevitably you're going to ask your agent, what do you think? And if you chose your agent well, you trust this person. But that trust, in my opinion, should be based on market facts, not wishful thinking, and not how much the agent wants it to close so they can cash that commission check. It's really clear. So ask them to show you the data. And frankly, they should have shown you the data before they opened their mouth with an opinion. And what I find really interesting when we work with our clients is that most of the time I'm telling them, this is not a great house. You should walk away. And that's because the market reality is that most of the homes are not that great at any given price point and range. It's just you have a once every 5 or 7 or 10 year opportunity to buy a house. Why would you pay more for an average or below average house? You really should look for the homes that are the most attractive in the market, understand market conditions so you can tell the difference, and then if necessary, pay a premium or move aggressively, or maybe dial back some of your contingencies to make your offer more attractive for that particular house. And that's the entry and mid-range, generally speaking, of the market. But as you move past that 2 million mark in particular, you could start to be more selective, and you could start to be more aggressive on negotiation. And above 3 all day long, you should be extremely aggressive. And don't fall for the hype. If they've paid to put this listing in the Wall Street Journal or Dwell magazine, it doesn't mean anything about its attractiveness. Ask to see the comps. Try to get your head around what it might cost you to construct this if you can't back into it from the comps. Yeah. Right? So construction replacement cost and time is another way to try to get your head around valuation. And I really think it's important to be disciplined and not fall in love. And I say this almost every deal with our clients. There's always another house. So if you don't get it because somebody else wanted to pay more or they were less disciplined, that's not losing. That's winning, that you didn't overpay for this house. you see the BATNA that there are or are not replacement houses to potentially go for. You can make an educated decision on how aggressive you want to be. And if you want to, if you want to make your decision on emotions, we're there to support you. But you're not going to get from me or from you, Hamish, that, oh my God, don't lose this one. Absolutely, you should pay $100,000 more than list because there'll never be another house like it. There's always another house. So
homes we see on the market for 120 days, we advise to offer 5% over. Sarcasm, if you didn't catch that.
That was sarcasm, Hamish.
Yeah.
That was big sarcasm.
But yeah, all
right, so when else would you recommend walking away, Hamish, besides it's overpriced?
Oh, I was going to keep, I guess, define a few more things, but the other thing depends on where you're walking away, but above the $3 million price point. And I guess as an aside, location, most of the homes above 3 million that we see in Boulder are kind of clustered in the high end area of the market as it is, and so you're not really fighting for a truly special location. You could find like a unicorn lot, like a massive lot, or something where there's we know of one listing that's not active, but it's a larger home than now what's allowed on the lot these days, and so it's kind of grandfathered in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. So that's a unicorn type of thing where perhaps it does make sense to kind of fight a little bit more. But I'd say you're under contract and you have a seller that is unwilling to negotiate on clear defects of the home that have been uncovered during the inspection process. If there's the inventory out there, I would be feeling pretty comfortable about just leaving at that point. Being unable to come to an agreement or a reasonable negotiation, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the inspection issues one is interesting because most of the time, if the buyer behaves in a reasonable way, the seller responds in a reasonable way. And what most people agree is reasonable are new discoveries that could not have been easily told by showing the property with your buyer's agent, right? Like maybe the buyer's agent has some education on this, but usually they're advised to not talk about the condition of the home, which is crazy, but that's what the lawyers tell us to do, is not talk about due diligence.
So absurd.
But if you find new things on your property inspection or the secondary inspections, as we just did this week, and we'll maybe talk about that in our Tales from the Trenches next week. So I don't want to go into too much detail on that. But I will say that our buyers behaved reasonably with new discoveries, and the seller behaved reasonably with numbers that worked out, that we agreed that sounds about right. And so that was actually a much smoother and easier negotiation than I would have expected. And it's because the sellers and the buyers were being reasonable people. And we've had to represent buyers in the past that we felt actually are not being reasonable. And we have tactics to help them achieve what they're trying to do, even when they're being unreasonable. That's a whole nother table of content.
And regardless,
that we could get into.
We are their agent, and it's our fiduciary responsibility.
It's our fiduciary responsibility.
We'll go to
bat.
Yeah,
we will go to bat. We will come up with a strategy. We will often advise you on what we think is the best approach. So that's all part of what we help people do on the buy side. And on the sell side, if you're dealing with a buyer that has presented a list of issues with the home that are reasonable, you should respond in a reasonable way. And if you're dealing with a buyer that has sent you a laundry list of trivial items to try to claw back on the price, you may have to make a business decision based on how long it's been on the market and the probability of attracting another buyer. Do you go to closing with this disingenuous person who's literally sending you a laundry list of nonsense on a 50-year-old house that were visible and obvious? Do you continue to go down that path with them, knowing that they could still, frankly, jerk you around on appraisal? They could jerk you around all the way to closing, and then they could walk away at closing on all sorts of things. So there are exits that you could usually not right at closing, but do you really want to continue the dance, right? Because the contract process is a process that's based on good faith and trust. You're trusting the other party to act in good faith. And when they demonstrate that, usually it feels good to move forward. But just like for the buyer with their BATNA, the seller needs a BATNA. Going back to market and fishing for another buyer. And what's really interesting in this process is how often, if the deal breaks up with buyer number one, the seller wants to throw the listing agent under the bus. for it as well. So this is where I've learned after 20 years that if you're going to end up terminating a deal or pushing back and not reaching agreement with the buyer, you need to make it clear that you've done your job as an agent. Like, your job is to advise the sellers, or your client's job is to make the decisions. But it's really interesting how the agent can sometimes get tarnished by bad negotiations. So new agents that are listening to this, okay, if you don't have a lot of experience in negotiation representing buyers or sellers, you really need to set expectations and also demonstrate your value over and over again throughout the transaction process, because a very unhappy client is not one you want to be forced into working with, protected only by a listing agreement. Like, that's the listing agreement is not why you're working together. The listing agreement just solidifies the basis of why you're working together. Like, that's the fail safe. If you can't, like, if you want to break up, this is your agreement that says what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Hamish, you were about to say something.
Yeah, something that I've noticed you doing a lot has been you take this negotiation and you bring it back to, what does success mean for you, client? Because it's, I think, in negotiation and tit for tat type of situations, really easy for people to get emotional about it and start wanting to claw things just for the sake of clawing things, or, getting some emotional gain for the sake of it. Bringing it back to center, which is like, what are we doing here? We're buying a house. Is this a good house? Yes. Okay, then let's carry, I think that's really important. And same with selling. Like, yeah, you hate the guy, but aren't you in negative equity right now? Wouldn't you want to get out of here? So, I think it's important to remember why you're involved in the real estate deal altogether. It
is important to remember that, and it's also important to look at the data on buy or sell side. You can look at negotiated discounts for a home that's been on the market 30,
Super
60,
helpful.
or 90 days in the same price range and location. What has been the median negotiated discount for the last 12 months? And you can look at that data and say, okay, that's our benchmark, right? If we're behaving reasonably and we priced it right, and the market is moving sideways, not up or down, then we should be able to hit close to that benchmark. That's what I would like to achieve, or better, because it makes me, it's a metric for me to understand our performance in negotiation. But remember, we're negotiating against one party with their own personality and their own stuff going on. So you never know. I mean, I have dealt with sellers that will not budge off their list price. And I think, and that's a listing agent failure, in my opinion, because they don't understand that the vast majority of transactions sell at a negotiated discount. So the buyer went in thinking there's a negotiated discount and has found out there's not, and your agent did a bad job of helping you see that that's the norm in the real estate market.
Not trying to tangent too much, but when I was in the automotive industry and we were selling cars onto the used market, a strategy I never saw get tested, but I really wanted to see, was pricing higher than the price you wanted, just because the buyer wants a discount. So you give them a token discount of whatever it is, so they feel like they got a steal. But in reality, the actual price you needed to break even was, that $1,200 off of the price anyway. It's kind of bake it in.
I mean, that's normal for the automotive industry. At least it used to be. And used cars typically have more margin than new cars, which is really fascinating. Totally. But that's, 100%. That's how pricing mostly works in the automotive industry, at least at pre-COVID. Post-COVID, I don't really know, because
it's all magic now.
All three of the vehicles I bought post-COVID have been full price. Like, the Grenadier was discounted by a little bit, but not massively. It was not, and they've got a bunch of inventory, and they're still not discounting very much. So,
but is that like somewhat applicable? I guess if you're a seller and you cannot budge on the price, would you bake in a little bit extra so you can pretend to give it? Yeah,
absolutely. If they told me my price is $1 million, I have to get $1 million. Period. I will not sell it for less than $1 million. Then I would say, okay, well, let's see what the market says. And let's price it to the market. If we can get you a lot more, I would like to get you a lot more. But if we can't get you a lot more, then I would say price it a few percent above, because that's whatever the median negotiated discount is in that price range and location, so that we build in that negotiation room. So it's actually, I tell clients there's two pieces, right? There's the negotiated price from the list price. If it doesn't sell the first weekend or the first week, you're probably in negotiated discount land. And then there's also a likely secondary negotiation over inspection issues. And even though your house might be perfect, you should expect at least the cost of the inspection to come up as a credit. So keep that in the back of your head, that the inspector's going to go look for things that cost about the cost of the inspection, even if the house looks great. And the buyer's going to want to claw on something, even if it sounds ridiculous. So plan for a little bit of a negotiated discount on inspection items, or corrections. Plan to fix a few things. And I've had sellers actually intentionally leave things for the inspector to find because they were contractors themselves.
That's a red herring. Is that what that's called?
I don't know if that's a red herring. It's planned concession is what I would call that.
Yeah. Okay, I like
and
that.
so 100% was thinking about replacing the hot water heater, and then was like, I think I'm going to let the buyer have the win, because nobody makes their offer on the age of the hot water heater, but it's going to come up. The hot water heater is 15 years old, 20 years old, and they're going to want a new hot water heater. At that point, we negotiate over a new hot water heater, and honestly, you might get away with half the cost of a new hot water heater. And this push-pull back and forth tends to hold a deal better together. And there's a saying in negotiation, if neither party is thrilled with the negotiation and where they landed, it's probably a good deal, because both parties had to give up something, right? And so we have all sorts of conversations with our clients over planned concessions on negotiation. When we submit, what are we expecting to come back at? What numbers feel reasonable or not? Internally, we set our benchmark. Sometimes we communicate that benchmark to what we think would define success. And if we blow past it, it's a really good feeling. To have
back.
Yeah, it's a really good feeling.
I think right before we move on, of course, every scenario is unique, and I think it's a nice discussion, bringing up multiple kind of from our history and seeing what works and what doesn't. And every client has an individual need. I don't think we met two that are the same.
I would say that's. I would say every negotiation has been different. There is no such thing as a textbook negotiation, but there are norms, and there are clear points when a buyer or a seller should stop negotiating and walk away. And the way the contract is written, by the way, the seller doesn't usually have the right to walk away. They can just say, no, we're not going to give you what you're asking for, and then the buyer has to decide whether they want that or not. And I'll give you an actual example of this. In Table Mesa, this is a few years ago, we had a listing and we accepted an offer, and in the language in the contract, the buyer said they were not going to negotiate over these pre-disclosed things, including the roof. And we disclosed the age of the roof, said the roof was 10 years old or whatever, 15 years old, we're not going to renegotiate over the roof. And they said, sure, no problem. And then they did their inspection and they tried to claw back on the roof and a whole bunch of other things. And of course, they had gotten the property in a bidding war. So they had gone over list to get it, and now they were trying to claw back. And at that very moment, a prominent agent in town who I've done many deals with called me completely out of the blue and said, my buyer just called. They were out of town this weekend. They missed the listing. Is there any chance they could get in and see this house and buy it? And I said, what's really interesting is we're right in the middle of negotiating inspection, and buyer number one is behaving disingenuously and in bad faith, in our opinion, and the seller's trying to figure out whether to deal with this person or not. So you have basically 24 hours to go get your buyer in and look at this house. And then if you want it, I need you to write an ironclad offer that has no exits. And if you do that, we will shove buyer number one out by basically stonewalling them. And that's what happened. And buyer number one, we said, you're getting nothing. We're not negotiating with you on any of your inspection issues. Go take a hike, because we had this backup offer.
We didn't ghost him, did we? I don't think so.
No, we didn't ghost them. We just said no.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And so they terminated. And I'm sure that buyer was really surprised to see that house didn't change status. It stayed as under contract and then closed 2 weeks later for more money than they had under contract for.
Mm-hmm.
And it was their entire bad behavior that caused that. That chain of events occurred because they behaved in bad faith and disingenuously and not in line with what they wrote into the contract to buy and sell.
I've seen discount brokerages set really high expectations that you're basically guaranteed to get a discount or claw something back on inspection. And I don't remember this brokerage for that deal, but I wouldn't be surprised if that buyer had the expectation that, we'll offer over and claw it back. And Well, welcome to Boulder. You know.
Well, so some people did play that game, right? They offer
Yeah.
more than list, and then they try to claw back on inspection. And now the seller has something to lose, because if the deal terminates, the listing, everyone wants to know what's wrong with the house. They never ask what's wrong with buyer number one. And usually there was something wrong with buyer number one, but that's why we also ask for a copy of the inspection notice once we're under contract to see what really happened with the first deal. Because you can't trust the listing agent to necessarily tell you. But 100%, a lot that was a common approach in the really craziness of the market, was to offer more than list, and then come up with a completely disingenuous inspection notice to try to claw back the price. And most of those, Boulder is a really small town. And so when you behave in those ways as an agent, word gets out pretty quickly. We all know who we're dealing with. All the seasoned agents in town know each other's personalities, know whether they have integrity or not, know whether they have good communication or not. And that's going to bring us to our next topic, Tales from the Trenches.
Fantastic. I think we were going to bring up the address for this one, were we?
I think we can totally bring up the address for this one. I think it's 100% legit.
Welcome our folks. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were recently in a multiple offer scenario for a listing in Louisville at 187 Mesa Court, and we were the first offer to the table. But then we were told that you have to wait. We call that hurry up offense. When we don't wait to hear if there's a submission deadline, we submit right away. And that, from a negotiation perspective, that puts a lot of pressure on the seller to make a decision. Do you take bird in hand, or do you tell the first buyer, resubmit on Monday, right?
Yeah.
Do you really tell them that? They decided to resubmit on Monday because they had multiple offers coming in the day we submitted. And so we had 4 days to think about our offer. And rather than just sit there wasting time, our buyers went to the open house. Our buyers met the neighbors. Our buyers continued to do their due diligence. And when we resubmitted, we were able to resubmit an even stronger offer, not on price, but on other terms. And at the end of the day, we even used an escalation, even though that wasn't utilized. And so the deal closed at our original offer price. And the reason I want to mention all of this is that even though we were told no, the listing agent, Elizabeth Reitersky, I'm mentioning her by name because she did a fantastic job in communication. And it was communication that did not feel hurried. It was communication that had integrity, and it was very effective in increasing the trust in the process that she laid out. Mm-hmm. She said, this is how we're going to do things. And those ground rules they made sense. And the way she communicated,
fair, right?
They're fair. And the way she communicated and how she conducts herself in communication increase the trust that that's actually what she's going to do. And so we went ahead and resubmitted. But in that moment, if this agent had done things that seemed shady or didn't make any sense and didn't want to walk through, I'll give you an example, okay? One of the common ways we will address inspection in the additional provisions is to add some language. Most agents will add language that says health and safety. We are only looking for health and safety issues. Buyers focused on their inspection on only big ticket items. We're not going to renegotiate over cosmetics. That's what you're communicating in language that is non-standard, but has become very common.
Yeah.
And that signals to the seller that you're a serious buyer. But one of the ways I like to write that is to actually put a dollar threshold in. Like, we're not going to renegotiate with you unless the cost to correct the significant non-cosmetic issue is over this dollar threshold. The problem with that languaging is that it creates all sorts of possibilities. And if the agent doesn't like it, they're going to tell the seller they don't like this language. Mm-hmm. And it's maybe because they've never seen it before. And so I asked Elizabeth, how do you feel about inspection contingency language that actually sets a dollar amount as a threshold to breach before we will issue an inspection objection? And she really liked it, which I do too. And we talked about why that makes a lot of sense. It feels way more concrete than vague language around health and safety. So we put that in there. But if she in that moment had said, I don't like it, we would not have used that language. We would have used language that she liked because we want our offer to be favored and recommended by the listing agent. And the only way you can have agreement on what language or an understanding of what languaging the listing agent likes without necessarily compromising your client is by having a long conversation with them and asking them, how do you feel about it? And she was willing
listing
to...
agent that picks up.
Yeah, that actually picks up the phone, right? And she was willing to talk through it. And throughout, I think I talked to her 5 times on the phone before that offer was submitted. And every time she picked up the phone. And every time if she didn't have a lot of time to talk, she said, this is what's going on for me right now. We're sitting down at dinner. Can I call you tomorrow morning at 10? Nothing's going to happen between now and 10 in the morning tomorrow. And I said, absolutely. That's perfectly fine. I want you to have time with your family on a Saturday night. Yeah. I'm sorry I even called. I hope it didn't come off as disrespectful. Like, we're really respectful to our colleagues in negotiation. And she was really respectful back. And that 100% helped, I believe, our clients feel confident and submit a strong offer. And they got the house. And they also now know all the neighbors, which they did as part of their due diligence.
That was so cool.
And all of that was cool.
Yeah. I remember they met one of the neighbors on our inspection walkthrough, and I went in with the dad, and he stayed out and chatted to the neighbors, which was great. A little bit of, I guess, sidebar, really quick, is Ratursky's daughter, I know through a friend of a friend, is the same age as me, so I heard... I know Ratursky's daughter before the agent Ratursky, and it's kind of funny, like a full loop. Now that I'm in my professional life. Yeah. So
does the apple fall far from the tree? Is the mom?
I don't remember much.
Can you see the light? Can you see the light flickering?
No, like
safe answer.
Oh yeah, there it goes. But yeah, I don't remember. Unfortunately, it is flickering.
I'm gonna flick it off and see what that does to the lighting, because it's sort of. Yeah. All right. So this next property, I'm sort of hesitant to go into a lot of detail, but I think, because we're pretty careful not to criticize by... No, I want to talk about this property. I'm just not going to talk about the agent or the company. People can look it up if they want. But the bottom line is we had a very different experience the weekend earlier, maybe 2 weekends earlier, on a listing that just closed and closed for less than our top offer, our number in the contract. And it's listed by a big name brokerage where you can click a few buttons and get your property listed. And the agent was completely the opposite from 187 Mesa. Rather than practicing really good communication, calling this agent on the phone, they were extremely uncomfortable. I mean, extremely uncomfortable talking on the phone. And you could just hear it in their voice that this is not... They don't have a lot of experience in negotiation, especially on the phone.
They got dropped headfirst into a property with a lot of interest.
I'm going to look it up and see how, 100%, right? It's a big box brokerage. They make a flat fee per listing. They get paid a salary. They're not on commission. And therefore, they're not that experienced. I'm just going to look up their name really quick to see how long they've been licensed.
If I remember right, too, while you do that, I think I was actually... a little optimistic that this agent would kind of be an exception to the rule, and I think like the first phone call or something showed promise, and then from there it kind of slid off. But anyhow, did you find their name?
I did. They got their
cautiously
license
optimistic. That's the word.
They got their license in May of 2020, and which means they've got less than 6 years of experience, right?
Got a couple years on me, but I don't know about experience.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean that doesn't mean you see so many deals. Yeah. Let's see what their LinkedIn says. Like, when do they actually?
We're doing our snooping.
Yeah.
You are a little darker if you when you come back to talk. See if you can put like a bright page on your monitor or something.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you've got that key light, don't you?
I do have the. You knew just as I reached for it. I got the key light. That might help a little bit.
A little bit. Oh, actually,
except I got the
Halloween
shadow
episode.
From the mic.
Yeah,
it's totally way too bright. It's
horror
fucking
stories.
insane. This light's way too bright. Okay, we got to turn this down. There we go. How's that?
Bear with us, listeners.
Oh,
okay, right. It's pretty good. But...
Okay. It still goes to full brightest the moment I put it down for some reason. Okay, let me.
It likes to be held.
One last time. It's pressing the button, I think, There we go. That might be a little better, although it's giving me Halloween shadows. But we'll go to a white page in just a second. I just want to see. they're not coming up as LinkedIn, even though I searched LinkedIn and then added it. Only their brokerage name comes in. There is an agent with Compass with this name, and it's got to be the same agent, I would imagine. But let me look at the photo that they're using. Yeah, they were with Keller Williams for a year, and then they were with Compass for 4 years. It says they're still with Compass, but this is the agent that I think it's the same agent. Let me see if there's more. Yeah, it's the same agent. Now they're with Redfin. Compass didn't work out, so they went to Redfin. Anyway, I'm not going to mention their name because it doesn't really matter, but they don't have a lot of experience. They've jumped from one brokerage to another, and now they're on they're getting probably a lot of volume, but not a lot of, they've traded deal volume for commission salary. I almost mentioned that. You can bleep that out, Hamish. Their business model is very different than a typical brokerage. So how did they handle it? Very uncomfortable on the phone and couldn't really get into discussing terms. And it was like, they did answer the phone. I'll give them props for that. But unfortunately, when I even asked them why our offer was not the most competitive, they went closed-lipped on that too. And one of the things we will do with agents that call us if we're on the listing side and they were not successful in a bidding war is actually talk to them about why their offer was not the top offer. And there is a risk perhaps of increasing some seller liability, right? Like maybe you're creating lawsuit potential by saying the wrong thing. Well, here's the thing. Don't do or say the wrong thing, right? You didn't choose the other offer based on the color of their skin or their religion. You chose it because it was a better offer. And here's why it was a better offer. It was a higher price, faster closing, much tighter inspection, covered the low appraisal. Like, what are the things that actually made that offer more competitive? And knowing how we wrote our offer, I know why we probably ended up in last place, but we got no communication before, during, or after from this agent. And it was just, the point I'm trying to make, and let me just put this dot on it, is that really good communication with integrity does what? It increases trust in the transaction, which does what? Increases the buyer's confidence and increases the purchase price, decreases the contingencies. That's a win for the seller in the deal. And this agent didn't do any of those things.
For what it's worth, you might be giving them too much credit that they would know the shortfall that you identified in our offer. I wonder if the agent doesn't have enough experience to identify that as a shortfall. I'm almost wondering if this agent panicked and went for an offer, or their sellers signed it and they were like, oh shoot, I didn't even negotiate with anybody, but now we're locked in. And that's just how it went, or something almost comically incompetent. But
well, so this is the other thing. You could see that this agent's worked for 3 brokerages. You could see when they were licensed, but what you can't see is how many deals they've done and whether or not they were the principal agent in the deal. You can look them up maybe on Zillow, and that might tell them, but sometimes they are the assistant on the deal. Like one of my former assistants, I put her on as co-listing agent for 2 years, and she has claimed all of those deals as her own in her marketing, which is ridiculous. Well, you're so much more involved in every single deal than she ever was. Yeah. So and I've never said anything to her about this. I'm like, that's sort of not right. But at the same, so you can't. So here's the thing: if you're interviewing agents, you can't actually tell easily from an online search or from knowledge of how long they've had a license. Last year, the National Association reported 71% of agents didn't do a single deal, 0 deals. More than half. The majority of agents did 0 deals in a year. So you have no idea how much experience this agent has or doesn't have unless you really get into it when you interview them. And it's very convenient to click a few buttons and set a listing appointment and create a listing agreement with a well-run, newer brokerage, because all of their systems are simplified and you will go through it very quickly. But this is not a decision you want to make quickly. This is a decision you want to do your homework on, because the difference between a good agent like Elizabeth Rytursky and this agent is night and day, and costs clients tens of thousands of dollars or more, and much longer days on market due to their lack of experience in managing negotiations, among a whole bunch of other things that they don't have a lot of experience doing.
I think too, you touched on it in the closing table, it affects our relationships with our clients. We can't turn around and say, for a fact, here's why your offer lost. We say, we've been trying to communicate with this agent and we're getting crickets. And it reflects kind of negatively on us. And we are trying, obviously, to get them the deal, find out offer terms, become more competitive, and even get any information. But when you have people in this profession that don't play ball or aren't communicative, it impacts, I think, everybody in the industry in kind of a way that's a little bit unique. As
our staging business partner mentioned yesterday,
Literally.
And we warned him about this when he was thinking about going into the staging business, that the spectrum of quality in this industry is the widest of any industry I've ever experienced. And on one end of the spectrum, you have Elizabeth Rytursky, who is top at her game and calls everyone she interacts with to perform better and do better. She's good. And when you're good, you're not just good for your client, you're good for the industry, you're good for your colleagues. Like, she calls people to a higher performance standard, which I appreciate, and I try to do the same. I'm not claiming, I think she's amazing,
right?
Right? But I'm not here tooting my own horn. I'm doing the best I can to be like her, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the way to be in the industry, and she's really good. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have these agents that work for big box stores that click a button, get leads, split a cost of the lead. They earn less money, and they don't have a lot of experience, nor do they care, because they are a volume business on a discount listing. And you as a buyer or seller, frankly, have fallen prey to paying the full fee typically and getting far less than what you paid for. And sometimes you pay a discount and get even less than what you pay for. The maxim is you get what you pay for in life. And that maxim increasingly is true. The older you get, the more you realize that's true. And that's, I think, an important one for people to understand when they're trying to navigate the real estate market.
And shout out to that individual as well who listens to the podcast. Hello. And if you made it this far, howdy.
Yeah, thanks for listening. And other agents that listen to the podcast. And I also want to say that just because this agent screwed up this deal doesn't mean that they can't get better.
And they closed,
right?
And
they did close, but their client probably has no idea about all the ways this agent really didn't do a great job.
Yeah.
All right.
Truthfully.
Let's let it go.
Let's
feel it. Let's
let it
cleanse
pass.
cleanse that. Two tales from the trenches, and let's talk about market conditions. And we are coming up on a little after 45 minutes, so I think we're making good time on the pod, Hamish.
I think so too. Let's keep that momentum.
So, Hamish, I got so triggered yesterday because
On market conditions?
About market conditions, because I was on Reddit, on the Boulder subreddit, and an
Reddit's
agent
where I go to calm down.
Yeah, well, an agent who published under a pseudonym, not their real name, published a market update. I don't. I have no idea who they are.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I did not look up their profile. Maybe it's possible to figure it out, but it sounds like they're a new agent. And they said, "Hey, everyone, I'm a realtor, and I just wanted to let you know what's going on in the Boulder market." And then they proceeded to spew all these data points that were factually incorrect. I don't even know where they got them from. They didn't disclose their source, probably from their brokerage, because the brokerage info is often not that accurate and very generic and often dated. And there was so much misinformation in this wall of text that they wrote that I was like, okay, I got to respond. And so I do occasionally publish under my real name on Reddit. You can find me there. And I responded. I'm like, hold on. Here's the actual data for the city of Boulder for single family houses for January. It's not, and he was like they were using vague language. Like the median sale price was between 900 and 1.1. I'm like, that's not, like the median is not a range.
Not a median.
The median is a specific number. What are you talking? I got so revved. I just felt my head explode. Like if I was teaching like a statistics 101 class in grad school and saw somebody put this into a paper, it would have been a big red F, okay, with a circle around it for understanding basic statistics. But I didn't respond with that sort of arrogance, even though I felt it and anger. I just gave the data, and I understand this person may not have analysis training, and they're doing the best they can, and they're trying to get leads, right? That's what they're trying to do. But I wrote a response, and almost immediately after I wrote that response, the original post was deleted. So the guy deleted the post. The person, I think it's a guy, but the person deleted their post. And my comment is still there with the actual data, but for purposes of this pod, I want to now share some data with you that actually is from the MLS itself. So it's always important. Well, it's important to reveal the source, because if I was using Boulder County tax assessor data, you can see transactions in there that are not arm's length. And so you don't really know what else is happening in this transaction. But when it's on the MLS, you know that it, in theory, is an arm's length transaction. And with enough data, the outliers can get washed out as well. So it's the best data we have is from the dominant MLS in the region. And that MLS for Boulder is IRES. And IRES utilizes InfoSparks, which happens to be, I think, owned by Zillow. But the data comes from IRES itself. So when I have checked it in the past, it's accurate. When I've manually done the same analysis and said, okay, is that number right? It's been right. So I think it's reasonable to expect this data to be accurate. We're not guaranteeing it. Let me add that. And IRES says that, and InfoSparks says that. But at least you know the source. So when you look at City of Boulder, and that's distinct from Boulder County, and you look at detached houses only, that means single family, not condos or townhomes, not triplexes and duplexes. When you look at the number of homes, let's start with closings. The number of closings in January were 40. That is flat year over year.
Wow.
Okay, 0% change compared to a year ago. And the pending sales last month, 54 pending sales. That's up 35% from a year ago. Total inventory, 218 houses on the market. That's up 8.5% from a year ago. And then the number of new listings, there were 100 new listings that popped up in January. That's a decrease of 21.9% from a year ago. And then the sale price, I usually look at the median sale price.
What's the range there?
Well, I mean, I can't, unless I manually do the analysis image, I can't give you the range.
I was joking because they gave median and a range, so I was like,
got it.
Yeah.
I got it. I thought you meant the range in the data set, not the median range. There's no such thing as a median range. The median sale price was $1,281,684. That's down 2.5%. And when you look at that on a dollar per square basis, the median dollar per square was $468, and this is dollar per total square foot. And that's an increase of 3.3%. But with a city like Boulder, where the sample size is small, the median even doesn't mean that much because it's more indicative of what price range is selling than price movements. So typically what I like to see is look at a few months in a row and see if you see a trend forming. Or even better, do a manual analysis for a neighborhood or property type or price range, or a home that has the characteristics that you're looking for in Boulder, and see how that's changed in the last 2 or 3 years. That's much more actionable and useful, specifically if it's down to the street level or neighborhood level than this generic analysis. But if you do look at this generic analysis and say, okay, what are we seeing? Pending sales going up 35% is no joke. Like, that's a big pop.
That's not
But
nothing.
It's also January, right? And January is not exactly the highest sales month of the year. But December was down. There were only 32 pending sales in December compared to a year ago where there were 40. So 8 can create a big percentage difference when the base is 32, or sorry, when the base is 40. So
I think, to use my, agents shouldn't be talking in feelings, but I really do feel as though a lot of buyers are like, I'm tired of waiting on the sidelines, or I'm tired of seeing if something's going to shift. I think it's the new year, and I'm just going to start pulling some triggers here and getting to it. It's kind of how it seems to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's the anecdotal how we feel the market to people, and I agree with you. We've been in 3 bidding wars. We've seen a lot more activity anecdotally, but I really want the data to back it up, and the data is backing it up. We're seeing pending sales up, new listings down, and dollar per square sale price on a dollar per square basis up, and sale price on a total sale price, median sale price dropping 2.5. So I think you're right. I think buyers that have been sitting on the fence and waiting are now getting more into the market aggressively. And that makes sense given that I think we're nearing the end of the cycle if we're not already there. And I mean, who knows what's going to happen, right? The stock market's been really turbulent the last few days.
Oh my gosh.
But all of the macroeconomic incentives or stimulatory things are yet to happen this year. And what do you think real estate's going to do when these things happen?
When debt gets cheaper?
It might, at the higher end, could continue to drop, but the entry and mid zone, we're not seeing that, at least not in the data. So not en masse. We're seeing some negotiated discounts, like we're going to talk about one of them that was shocking, that I actually mentioned in that Reddit post. But overall, it looks like this year is waking up. And by the time we know for sure, it'll be too late to be actionable. Okay, let's talk about Lafayette really quick, and then let's move on because don't want to move into a 2-hour pod. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
So closings last month in the city of Lafayette, which is a city in Boulder, there were only 17 closings. That's down 5.6% from a year ago. Lafayette's even smaller than Boulder. Under contract, there were 27 that went under contract last month. That's a 50% increase from a year ago. Total inventory, there are 38 houses you could potentially buy last month. That's an increase of 8.6%. And then new listings, there are 25 new listings that hit the market. That's an increase of 31.6%. The median sale price for a single-family house last month in Lafayette was $850. That's a 9.8% decrease. And the price per total square foot was $344, a 19% increase. So dollar per square popped 19%. And the total sale price dropped 10%. So what does that tell you? I think that tells you smaller houses sold. Like, we're talking about such a small data set. So this is why I keep telling people that if you're serious about understanding what's happening relative to your specific real estate situation, you need to do the analysis specific to your criteria. Whether it's a home you're trying to sell or one you're trying to buy, the analysis is not that hard to do. And if your agent is not capable of doing it live with you on a video call so you can see it, you should find another agent, because you should not be making investment decisions that are frequently $1 million or more on the basis of how it feels. You should be doing that on the basis of what the market data is telling you. And of course, trust your feelings and trust your gut, but not alone, not without the data behind it. It's too easy to be influenced by an agent that has dollar signs in their eyes and are dreaming about the commission check in their pocket.
I'd say it too. I can't cite it, but I've seen it where you've been like, here's what my intuition says, and then I looked at the data and it disagrees. And then that's kind of where you left it. You were like, I really felt this, but then the X disagrees with me, and so that's my advice to you, is to pick somewhere, it's just when it's just a baseless, like, yeah, I feel like this is a fantastic home. You're like, okay, and
I mean, look, there is something to be said for experience and heuristics, right? We can't do a data analysis for every opinion, but when the opinion really matters and it's influencing our client to write a check for more money or take a check for less money, I think it's important to at least have that conversation of, would you like to go look at the data and see if it backs up? Because we could do a pretty simple analysis, especially if it's for a standard house, right? If it's a home that appeals to 80% of the market, has a good layout, good location, and there's enough sales comps in the last year to create a database, we can look at the data and give you a pretty accurate evaluation. If you've got an oddball property, it gets much harder, because we're looking at factors that just aren't captured by enough data.
However, you still use it to kind of steer you, and I've seen you do that too. So regardless, I'm with you.
Something is pinging like crazy in my ears.
Speaking, dude, the market is so weird. I hear it's down and I check and I'm up still, and I'm like, what is going on?
The stock market?
Yeah. Anyhow.
Okay, let's move on, Hamish. We've talked about market conditions, and now let's get into sales of the week. And you have this in an interesting order. So in the notes, I'm just going to go in the order of highest to lowest price, which is typically what we do. And
Is that not?
I don't think so. Is it?
It might be.
Okay. Yep. Okay, you're right. My apologies.
Okay, perfect.
My apologies.
No, you're fine.
All right, our first listing is 4697 Tanglewood Trail. And this is in Gun Barrel Green. It's right next to the golf course. And there's a minimal association for being in this neighborhood, $100 a year. The house was built in the 70s. It's a 2-story home. And it was originally listed, so 3-bedroom, 4-bath, pretty decent square footage, 4,142, and a 3-car garage, decent sized lot, 15,000 square feet. This neighborhood, by the way, was largely developed during the IBM era of Boulder, and a lot of this is like executive housing for IBM employees.
That makes sense, gun barrel-ish, yeah.
Yeah, Gun Barrel Green. So, and then Heatherwood for sort of mid-level and below, but Gun Barrel Green for kind of more affluent execs. So September 22nd of last year is when it originally listed at 1.95, and nothing happened, and they didn't change the price. It then went under contract shortly after the beginning of the year, and it sold for a $225,000 discount to list, which is a pretty significant discount. Let me do the math. 1,725 over 1,950. So you're looking at an 11.5% negotiated discount. Typically, the first quarter is not when you see that type of discount, with the exception being a stale listing from the previous year and a seller that just wants this process done after several months of I'm going to close this window that's beeping at me. After several months of dealing with showings, strangers in their homes, and given the age of this, the last time it traded, hang on a second. The last time this deal traded was it was in a trust, but that trust, the name is the same from 1996. Sorry, even older. The name is the same from 1995. So this family owned the house for the last 30 years. There's a really good chance you're looking at an estate sale, right? That's finally when you're getting the house out of their. I almost said, can I say cold dead hands? That sounds really rude. I don't want to be rude.
It sounds a little rough, yeah.
It's not Halloween, but this is a home that has been owned for a long, long time by the family, and they've dealt with prepping the home for sale and then multiple months of not getting it sold. They listed it the wrong time of the year, but I mean, that's just when they listed. We would have advised them to wait until the beginning of the year, or bring it back, take it off the market and bring it back with a price adjustment. But somebody lowballed it and they got it. And I think it's actually a fantastic house. I'm surprised at the level of discount. I have not done the comps. It's quite possible that this is actually fair market, but I know the listing agent, and this listing agent is not known for overpricing homes. I think he priced it right.
Oh, yeah.
But if the seller wants to capitulate, the listing agent's not going to say no. So that's how this deal went. It just surprises me how big this discount was. I thought for a minute maybe the power lines were an issue. So if you look, you can see this on an overhead map. There are transmission lines, only a few hundred feet, but they really shouldn't be visible. And this house backed to the course, which should overcome the 275 feet away. But the house backing to the court should have overcome the transmission line issue.
It is a blast from the past, at least, but that's visible and obvious. Yeah, I wonder, maybe something big was uncovered in inspection and they just took it as a reduction in the purchase price.
But that's possible. Of a $200,000
huge reduction. It wasn't a cash deal, was it?
It was a cash deal, but it wasn't a fast closing cash deal, right? So it went under contract on January 8th and it closed on February 4th. That's a normal timeline. So the cash is nice, but other than loan approval, it didn't really. Normally when you do a cash deal, you close in a couple of weeks because then you don't need a month to go through due diligence. The kitchen's a little dated. It's more traditional, I would call it. The bathroom looks horribly dated, but that's just wallpaper, right? The carpets could be replaced.
The wallpaper, yeah.
The gold fixtures are dated, sure.
The kitchen's honestly pretty reasonable, yeah.
The kitchen's pretty reasonable. The window treatments are total grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably
the study
what
I would rock with, but that style of wood grain, I'm over it. I've seen it too many times.
Yeah.
It's a study, not an office when it looks like that.
Chisel out that old-fashioned tile backsplash with something a little more current. I mean, you're looking at maybe $50,000 worth of upgrades, right? Like, you don't even necessarily need to swap out the tub. You could just swap out the fixtures and the sink and the tub. It's just the window treatments and the wallpaper. $50,000 to $100,000, and this is totally a different house. But yeah, this is a deal that surprising early year or first quarter capitulation, but mostly based on the fact they probably were done after so long on market. Okay, Let's look at our next one.
Good call. Snead, 6798 Snead Court in Longmont, sold for 1.210.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny is this isn't really Longmont. It's Lake Valley. And Lake Valley all have Longmont addresses. Lake Valley is the first neighborhood just on the north side of Boulder. After you cross Boulder Valley Ranch, you're into Lake Valley. You can see it from Boulder Valley Ranch.
Oh, yeah. It's full of the golf coursey area.
Yeah, it's got a golf course. It's got a private lake and swimming facility and picnic facility for people that live there. It's got a reasonable HOA, $750 a year, and it sells for a huge discount to what you can buy in Boulder. And it's only like an additional, 7 to 10 minute drive from North Boulder, and you get way more house, and you get a really family-friendly neighborhood, big lots. And this particular house, I don't know why it was listed as subdivision North Rim. That might be the legal subdivision, but everyone knows this location is Lake Valley. And the interior, it looks like it's mostly original. The staging is kind of crazy. Like the bowl is very intense. Colors are saturated. The bowl and the counter is like, what is happening? It's because the colors have been oversaturated in all the photos. But, I mean, it's a nice big family house for a very reasonable price. In fact, I would love to drag some of our clients that are in this range right now and go look at Lake Valley, because you get a really nice development at a discount. You can't buy anything close to this in Table Mesa for 1.2. This would be a $2.5 million plus house in Table Mesa. So save $1 million to go live in Lake Valley may be a good fit for you, particularly if you're not attached to schools. I mean, that's one of the things about Lake Valley is you are not in Boulder. Wow. Boulder. You're not in Boulder schools. You're in St. Vrain district. So that might make a difference for you.
You have to try and get into the Boulder Valley School District.
I don't think can you switch districts? Maybe. I don't know how that works.
I've only been a student, never a parent. I'll say, you're not getting the square footage and lot size in Table Mesa for anything remotely close to what this is going for.
27,000 square feet. And so this house had been on the market. They listed it in October. It went under contract. Supposedly it broke up through no fault of the house. Hint, make sure you get a copy of the termination notice if you buy a house like this. But it went back on the market right before Thanksgiving, and then it went under contract January 8th, and it closed a month later at $40,000 below list, which is a very reasonable negotiated discount for, frankly, I think a pretty nice house with some dated elements and not great listing photos with oversaturated photographer who I don't know what they were thinking, but
I do like their the sunset photos, if they're sunset or if it's sunrise, but I do like their kind of those photos.
Yeah, the sunrise and sunset photos look nice, but the flowers look like insanity. And of course, these are flower photos that were taken maybe last year when the property was first listed. It's a great property, okay? Like it's just, and it's in a great spot. It has amazing views.
What was I going to say? Oh, Lake Valley? It feels like if you don't live there, you aren't allowed to be, like, it feels like a gated community. Totally because it is kind of so remote and tucked away and everything. Like it's, I really like that area. We went to that. 100%. I went to that client's house to drop off a closing gift, and I was just floored by the views and the feel and everything. Just going through there, yeah.
And you also get to say you can't vote in the city of Boulder elections, so you don't have to get involved in local politics. You can totally abstain. Look, Lake Valley is a hidden secret, and I think it's a smart. If I could put a smart buy on an entire neighborhood, I would put it on Lake Valley. It's a value investment. You don't get the cachet of living in Newlands or Table Mesa or Mapleton Hill, but you get a lot more house, far less crime, direct access to recreation. You can ride your bike right through Boulder Valley Ranch into the city of Boulder if you wanted to.
Yeah, and Joder Ranch bike trail just got finished up and everything right there too.
The North Sky Trail is right over there. I mean, it's a fantastic spot, and it's a value play for people that need a larger home. Maybe they've got a family, they've got kids, or whatever. They've got a larger number of people living with them, and they don't want to pay the Boulder premium. You get a lot of the benefits of living in Boulder without the price tag.
Yeah. Have we glossed
We've exhausted
enough?
that one.
Yeah.
All right. 780 Alpine Avenue is our next one. And this one's really interesting because we know a lot about this location because of one of our former listings. And it's a location that has duplexes. Like, the zoning allows for duplexes, and once the new zoning regulations were passed, my understanding is you can now build triplexes. And that's how this property was effectively marketed. It wasn't even marketed as a standalone residence. It was marketed as vacant lot, land, income. And income being it's a duplex. But really, likely what's going to happen in the near future is this duplex structure is going to get scraped. And they're going to build a really nice modern triplex because you're so close to North Boulder Park. You're steps away from downtown Boulder. The dirt is worth $930.
Yeah.
Without a problem. It's a really good spot for that. And we're not pro-development, by the way, just because I think that's what's going to happen.
Osmond has been accused, however.
I know. The
I was
irony.
going to wait for the news.
Irony of
calling
people
you out.
calling me out for being pro-developer. It's so ridiculous when people do that. They have no idea how not pro-developer I am.
It just shows how fairly you report on things. It's a good thing.
It's hilarious.
It's something. Yeah.
I mean,
Anyhow,
I've jokingly said if I run for city council, my yard signs are going to say Boulder is full. Vote for us. Go home. Boulder is full. Like I don't want more density and more people living here. I know everyone has a desire to live here, and we need to be equitable and create opportunities for people to live here. And I hear all of that, but at what price to congestion and quality of life and crime and taxes are going. I mean, people's tax bills should give you a wake-up call. And yet we're still adding thousands and thousands of more units while school enrollment is declining, and yet tax bills are going up, like for schools. So it's very I sound very fiscally conservative. Maybe I am, but I'm not socially conservative.
You say all this, but I know deep down you want to see more high rises.
All right. Okay. So that's the deal with this particular listing, 780 Alpine. Yeah. It was listed on October 30th, right before Halloween, at $1,095,000. 2 weeks later, they cut it to $1 million. They sat on it through Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then it went under contract January 9th, and it closed for $930,000, which is a pretty decent discount to list, $70,000 below list.
Like 15%.
But no, not that big. $930,000 over $1 million is $70,000.
Oh, over $1 million. Yeah, I was going off of 1095. Original list.
You're looking at 7%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we'll see who bought it. But I think the likely acquirer is going to be somebody that develops that.
Yeah. It's a nice little pick. I don't have much to say on Alpine. Close to North Boulder Park. I've seen a few listings there while we had ours up with some buyers, and I mean they all kind of have that like small little sleepy structure to them. It'd be nice to see that get scraped and something a little bit more nice put in there.
Some homes are worth preserving, particularly pre-war homes. But a lot of the homes in the 50s through the early 80s were not built that well, and they're not necessarily the most efficient use of
kind of like
space.
shoehorned in. Yeah.
But at the same time, some of them are amazing. Some of the mid-century modern custom homes are absolutely amazing. And the environmental cost of new construction is extreme. And Boulder doesn't like to talk about that because it conflicts with our environmental goals, but it's 100% true. Construction has the highest greenhouse footprint, I think, of almost any industry, right? Like the environmental cost of new construction is insane.
But yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's up there. I guess you could look. You can go ask Grok while I'm.
I'm not trying to argue it, but like, yeah, it's. I don't doubt that in the slightest. And like concrete, I think, is like a huge carbon.
Concrete's
creator.
a huge piece of it. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, 4321 Lucca Drive is our next listing. And this is a two-story house in the Renaissance neighborhood in southwest Longmont, built in the early 2000s. This particular house, 3,200 square feet, 4-bedroom, 4-bath. It's got a main floor primary, 2 bedrooms on the upper, and this one's got a finished basement where there's an additional bedroom. And I put this one on the list because Renaissance is actually another smart location for people that would like to be close to Boulder for work or other reasons, but don't necessarily want or can't pay the Boulder premium. And when you go to southwest Longmont to the Renaissance neighborhood, you are 15 to 20 minutes away from the city of Boulder, assuming that the diagonal is not backed up. And you're in a really nice family-friendly neighborhood. And that neighborhood is closely... it's in close proximity to open space around Lagerman Reservoir. It's on the best cycling paths or bicycling routes in Boulder County that are usable year-round. It's not in the mountains. And it does have a downside. The air traffic can be a little bit much from the local airport, and in particular the Twin Otter from the skydivers can really annoy some people. But you should know that that's what you're buying before you write the offer, and go stand outside on a Saturday and see how you feel about that Twin Otter dropping, jumpers every 20 minutes. If it drives you crazy, then that's not the right location for you because it's probably not going to change. And if you're into general aviation, if you own your own plane, this is another reason to buy this location. It's fantastic. So most of these homes seem reasonably well built, and they're now at the age where some of them are getting updated. This particular one, I think, is almost all original finishes based on what I see. I don't think anything's been changed. Maybe some of the appliances have been changed. But it has one unique benefit, and that is it is right next to the park. And having mowed my share of lawns, let me tell you, having a tiny little back private yard to mow and then having a giant community-owned and maintained place to throw a Frisbee is like the perfect combo. And you can walk your kids to school from here. It's along the paths. And on any given weekday or weekend, you're going to see kids playing everywhere in this neighborhood, which should tell you something about how parents feel about safety in the Renaissance neighborhood. So that's why I included this property. I happen to own a rental home that's nearby and have lived in that rental home for a year, so I know this location really well. And this house checks a lot of boxes in its classic two-story design. It's got a cute little front porch. It's got the upper level bedrooms and the primary on the main. They did finish the basement. You've got a 2-car garage. It just checks all the boxes for what most people want. And sure enough, it was listed on January 8th, $785. It went under contract almost immediately. Pretty much looks like a bidding war because it sold for $791. It sold for $6,000 over list. And there was a $1,000 concession for something or other that the buyer's agent negotiated, likely inspection related, and that's the end of it. So if you did the math, I'm not going to do it right now, but these people bought the house for $481 in 2016, and they sold it for $791. So they sold it for $310,000 more than they paid for it. So I think they did okay, including commissions, for owning a great house in the Renaissance neighborhood. And this is the type of pattern, frankly, you should look for if you care about the investment performance of your primary residential property, is go look and see how some of these other homes have done throughout time. And this one's no improve. They did not recapitalize or do a bunch of really high-end upgrades in this house. This home just naturally appreciated $300,000.
Pretty nice feeling.
And what
this
there used to be
cool. You're right. I didn't realize it was next to yours.
They used to be an ad, Hamish. It's probably before your time, but it was for Norelco razors. Do you remember the Norelco razor ads where the guy's like,
I have them.
I like the razor so much I bought the company.
No, but that's great.
Does that ring a bell? Oh man, you're so young. Okay, so I like this neighborhood so much I bought a house in it. Right? Like, so if you're listening to this pod, I don't know if that matters to you or not, but it's not just me blowing hot air. I think Renaissance makes a lot of sense. Whole Foods is so close. The movie theater, if it stays open, there's plenty of shopping nearby. It's just a nice little family neighborhood.
I'm still learning kind of Longmont layout and geography, so I didn't realize it was in this location. But I mean, it's a easier shot onto the diagonal than most, and then weirdly enough, that airport doesn't have drone restrictions unless you're like real close to it. And I know this from the Hoover Ridge home, but and that is the airport that I skydived at. So
same,
good one.
I've jumped out of a plane from that airport.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about our last sale of the week, and it is 4500 Baseline Road, Unit 2107. I have been paying attention to this development since I first moved to Boulder because it is so unlike anything else. The Vistoso condos, which are located off of Baseline Road, right next to the shopping plaza there. The next development over is Laguna, which I actually like for a variety of reasons. But the Vistoso, I have never taken a buyer into Vistoso and had a positive experience. All of them feel really negative about how it feels like a hotel. And I swear the developer used hotel planning or something in its design elements. It feels like a hotel from maybe Florida, and it does not feel neighborhoody or cozy or warm. The HOA fees are through the roof, $935 a month for this particular unit.
It's a three-bedroom payment.
It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's a big 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? It's bigger than your typical Martin Acres house. It has 1,400 square feet or just under that. And it has a 1-car garage space, but a $935 a month HOA. Taxes were actually fairly reasonable, but that's because the purchase price is only $600. So this makes sense if you, say, have got a couple of kids that go to CU. The problem is when you go to sell it. I've never seen a unit fly off the market. I mean, I haven't done the full data analysis. Maybe it's possible. But just look at the sale history of this one. Right? In 2010, an owner tried to sell it, and it was on the market a full year, and that listing expired. This listing, they put it on in August at $595. It did go under contract in December, so 4 months later. And then that buyer decided, this is really not going to work, and terminated. And then buyer number 2 put it under contract January 16th, and it sold for full list, but it took 6 months. I'm surprised it sold at all because of how my buyers have reacted to being in this building. It just doesn't resonate with people for the hotel-y feel of it. So it wouldn't surprise me if the person who locked it down is a CU, as a CU parent, because it makes sense as a CU kiddie condo. It's just up the street from the university. And it's only $600,000 for 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, but I mean that HOA almost makes it not worth it, right? Like even if you can charge rent from the other children that are renting that place, or sharing it with your child, that HOA is so expensive.
Okay, but a Martin Acres house like this or a Baseline house like this is going to be in the 7s and 8s, and probably not have the nicest finishes. So if you do the math on $935 a month times 12.
I mean, you're getting your money out of easier sale. Not necessarily getting your money out of, but
you're burning $11,000 a year in the HOA. Your kid's only in the place, let's say, for 4 years, or if you're unlucky, let's say your kid's at CU for 5, and now you're into it for $56,000 is what you paid for the association dues. Yeah. So you do the math: $56,000 plus $595.
I mean, it gets you around, what, $630, $640?
You're at $651. You're still $200,000 less than you would have had to pay for a Martin Acres house, and you don't have to deal with any of the exterior maintenance as a parent. Like you don't have to worry about your kid destroying the lawn or not
I guess I'm
maintaining
more like
the roof.
they're the Colorado Ave ones, apartments or condos, or like Gold Run, those ones versus Vistosa.
Gold Run is so much better and more expensive,
Yeah.
but Gold Run would be a much, much better choice. So right now, what I'm seeing in the market is that this type of property largely appeals to people that have an ulterior cost structure, right? They're comparing it to paying a slumlord. And when the choice is pay a slumlord for a rundown rental or buy something for Junior to live in, if they have the means, they orient to Junior buying, not Junior renting. And then Junior can get the roommates they want, generate some cash flow during that time. And then even if it doesn't sell for $595 in 5 years, it sells for $550. You're still way ahead compared to paying the slumlords. And it's cheaper than a standalone house with less maintenance issues to worry about. Although as a long-term investor in Boulder, I think the single-family house is a better choice. But I get the math on why this makes sense. I just have that the sick feeling in my gut every time I have to take a client to go see something in Vistoso, because every single time the reaction has been the same. Ooh, can we get out of here? Because this feels awful. This feels like we're in a Florida condo complex and it's soulless. It feels like a hotel in Florida that we rented because it's close to the beach, but it has no soul or appeal whatsoever. I'm never going to get a listing in Vistoso. I have now killed any possibility of ever getting a listing in Vistoso. But that's okay, because I don't want a listing in Vistoso.
You'll still be able to sleep at night, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's our honest take on Vistoso. Thanks for joining me.
Well, have you ever been inside, Hamish?
No, I've never even shown this area. I've only driven past it, and I thought it was entirely privately owned and just rented out. I know you've brought it up a few times, that's no longer the case, but yeah, it's always just seemed like it was owned by a massive property management company, and that was that.
Okay, let's talk about shameless self-promotion. I think you should lead, Hamish, since you had the open house.
Yeah, we had, from all the open houses that I've thrown, I think that was the busiest that I've been to and hosted.
Nice.
And the majority was the neighborhood. This is for our listing, 927 Hover Ridge Circle. And it's not to be confused with Hover Street, which is a busy through street. So yeah, I threw this open house, and it's a 5-bedroom, 4-bath, and it is 2671 square feet. There's a family room in the basement and 3 bedrooms down there. It has 2 bedrooms and a loft upstairs and 2 bathrooms. It's a very nice layout. It's a very flowy layout with a lot of open air, and the staircase is open. I found out, Osman, that this home was the agents who kind of sold the development. And so this agent had a few specific features, like the natural wood framing around the stairs and on the cabinetry and stuff is, to my understanding, custom and added after the fact. And then at this open house, too, a lot of neighbors came in. One of the neighbors did the planning and some of the architecture for the neighborhood, and also including this house. So we got to talk about easements and setbacks and all sorts of just really exciting things. But this house is a 5-minute walk, 5-minute stroll from, I believe, coffee, some shopping, a few other things. And then it's next to some really good schools. I'm currently blanking. But it's a great home. There's really good light throughout. I took the photos and the video and everything for this home, and didn't struggle at all for light, which is a reality if you're filming for video, and that's kind of a personal note on my end, but it's quite functional. That loft upstairs also looks like it's really asking if it needs to be a bedroom. I think it was designed with that in mind. Right now it's a great loft, but it could easily be 3 bedrooms upstairs, I believe.
Maybe, if permitting allowed. Just
I believe.
Add that little caveat, okay? Because we don't know the permit requirements for converting that to a bedroom. But yeah, it looks like it could be easy.
And this is kind of maybe more of a cynical take, but I discovered or learned that the stairwell, when you're walking down it, is designed so that you can see Long's Peak framed perfectly. However, when the development was being created, Longmont had requirements for amounts of trees in the HOA, and so one of the trees took off and blocked out the view. So when tree disease gets widespread enough, you should get a nice view of Long's Peak again.
When that tree eventually dies.
Yeah.
Well, so let me add a few. Can I add a few pitch points on this listing?
Yeah.
So
you're
I
much
did the
better
price
at explaining properties. Yeah.
I did the price analysis on this, and basically you can head towards Renaissance and you're into the 7s, or you can go into far east Longmont and you're into the mid 5s, and this is that sweet spot. It's a newer home built in the late 90s. It's a classic 2-story. It's got plenty of bedrooms and baths, and it's just really well designed with that spiral open space design inside the house. It fits the budget. I mean, it's only $595. We priced it aggressively. And the one thing that I think people need to get their heads around is that the exterior maintenance of this home, including the landscaping, I believe, is covered by the association. So it functions like a condo. And it has a $436 a month HOA. Contrast that with Vistoso at $900, right? So you're looking at half the cost. Same price listing, half the cost association, more than double the space. Really nice 2-car attached garage, an amazing community. Like, this community really loves living there. The people that are in this community, it's tightly knit. It's also a rare gem, right? Like, it's not a neighborhood that most people have heard of, and when they see Hover, they think, oh no, it's on that main busy road. It's not. It's tucked in, and you're in such close proximity to the pool and golf courses. It just makes a lot of sense, and it's a lot of house at a very reasonable price, and it's a newer home that would work for a lot of buyers. I don't think it'll be on the market long. The one caveat is we have to help people understand the value of this association, because it's not a very expensive association and it covers the entire exterior. So that's a lot. I mean, but
there's a community garden. There's a gazebo.
It's okay. All of those things, but it's just, most people that buy single family houses are not thinking the association is going to handle painting and my roof, snow removal. Like, they're not thinking about those things. And that adds up. Yeah. That adds up to a lot. Unfortunately, it means you probably can't go kill that tree.
Not obviously.
For the view. Oh, you're gonna sneakily kill the tree, Hamish?
Yeah.
Dead of night, you're gonna drill a hole and dump some Roundup on the roots? Is that how you're gonna kill it?
I would never. I would feel so bad, and it would be, who do you think's gonna benefit from this dead tree? That house. Okay, we'll start there. On the investigation.
Well, we're not advising you to do anything illegal with killing trees, but it's a house worth checking out. If you are in this price range and you are currently shopping, we're happy to schedule a showing for you. It's a great house.
We had neighbors come through and remark that they could hear the traffic and noise from Hover Street, but not in this house. And they were surprised at how kind of tucked away and silent it was inside. So, I think it's genuinely a damn good price for what it is. Outside of being privy to it, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the news and give the listeners the hot takes they've been waiting for. And Hamish, we're going to start with this power outage that happened, was this 2 weeks ago? We delayed this story because it was happening at the same time the sun was doing all these coronal mass ejections, and there was lots of YouTube chatter about a Carrington event potentially coming. Do you want to kind of walk us through what happened with Excel and how many customers lost power?
I am hitting an ad blocker right now. I actually didn't hear about this outage, but it looks like it was all the way across Denver Metro, maybe South Denver. Oh, no, that's right, the airport. And they lost power. The airport generates some of its own power too, but a transformer went out. And then we heard transformer, and I think we both remembered in a few videos about Carrington events how transformers are kind of more one-off than they are off the shelf, and how fragile our grid really is.
That's all you got to say about this? You're not going to tell us about the history of the Carrington event? It's called the Carrington event because the person who first observed it, named Carrington, and it caused all sorts of when this large coronal mass ejection happened. I think this is the late 1800s. Hamish, you could look it up while I'm talking. It fried telegraph lines. It actually caused all sorts of damage, and we had very rudimentary electronics at that time, if any. Right, like we're talking about a society that largely was not electrified.
Telegraph.
Telegraph.
Yeah.
The telegraph wires fried people. They got shocked. And it turns out that Carrington event size coronal mass ejections are not uncommon. They happen like every 50 to 100 years, something like that. You could look it up on AI while I'm talking, Hamish, and verify what I'm saying. But basically, there's been a bunch of coronal mass ejections that caused a bunch of YouTubers to talk about how Carrington event probability may be increasing. We haven't had one in a long time. And at the same time, we had this massive transformer-caused blackout that affected 195,000 Coloradans, and could easily happen again with a coronal mass ejection and the Carrington event, with a Carrington event sized coronal mass ejection. The thing is, this is like one of those existential things, Hamish, that what are you going to do about it, right? Like, there's nothing.
Yeah. No, this is like 2008. I think I got really into Planet X, and it was supposed to pass by Earth during 2012, and that was one of the coinciding theories of the end of the world on 2012. But it has a feeling to that. It depends. Kurtzegart made a video on this kind of Carrington event type of deal, and they were really optimistic. They were like, we've got more safeguards in place than we did before, and we've got monitoring and things. And then I clicked on a video, I think, from the Wall Street Journal, and they're like, yeah, if we will have anywhere from an hour to a half an hour's heads up, and then we have to act quickly. And I'm like, well, that doesn't feel nearly as like we'd be prepared for that in an hour to a half hour. This Carrington event, there were the Aurora Borealis was seen on the equator. Like, you imagine you're in the Caribbean and you're seeing the aurora. I think it was such a powerful event. It lasted like 4 days, according to Wiki, and then AI here says that they appear to happen roughly every 100 to 200 years. So we are overdue. 1859 was the Carrington.
So every 100 to 200 years, not every 50 years. And the things I remember reading when we put this into the show notes was that predictions range from blackouts that last a few hours to blackouts that could last years, because of the scale of all the transformers that would get fried if they're still connected to the grid when the event begins. So that, it's like stock up the prepper closet. What are you supposed to do? What's funny though is that the new energy code requires surge protectors in the panel for the whole house. And a couple of years ago, one of our rental properties got a surge that fried the dishwasher, fried the clothes dryer, fried a refrigerator. None of them survived a power surge. And the new code now requires surge protectors in every panel that potentially could have saved, $7,000 worth of appliances or whatever that I got billed for. So maybe it's worth installing a surge protector in your home's electrical panel, or I don't know, turn off your power if you have enough time, but you may not.
Yeah, it's got me like considering unplugging my computer at the end of every night, just in case while I'm sleeping. Go on.
That's all I got. It's just super interesting that 195,000 customers in Denver were in a blackout, and it was from a fried transformer. And if you look at the studies of or you look at the predictions, one of their fears is that transformers are not typically off-the-shelf items, right? Like they're custom. And if we lose a large number of them all at once, that's why the blackout would last that long, is because it would take that long to manufacture new equipment to replace the old equipment that's been fried.
And manufacturing during a blackout, right? As there's another kind of off existential thing is we're getting kind of pelted by radiation all the time, And there are a few very strange cases where a tiny little particle from the sun has made its way into people's computers and processors and hard drives and things, and just changed like one bit of information. And like there was a video game where it occurred to somebody and they got the fastest time ever, and it's considered like a real test because it was a real world like event. But then there's radiation that have affected computers and just completely shut things down. And so it's just, there's a lot to say about it, and like the sun is fairly hostile. Shout out to our magnetosphere, if that's the word.
yeah. Shout out to our magnetosphere and our ionosphere, right? Is that part of the magnetosphere?
That's it. I think that's the one.
Yeah, this is not our area of expertise, but that's our hot take, is that I don't know what you can do about this other than install a household surge protector.
Yeah, if that works.
And will that work? Anybody know? It's cheap, but it won't save you from having no power. So
I know, it's just good when it comes back online.
Right, it'll prevent your household stuff from frying. Okay, let's talk about news that we actually know more about and can actually sound maybe slightly more intelligent. I will say that like we typically choose things in the news that I feel like we have some competency for, but there is something to be said for the Joe Rogan approach to choosing our news stories, which is to just bro it, just bro our way through it and be like, we're cool, we don't know what we don't know, and enjoy the conversation. But a possibility of not having power for years is really quite alarming for a lot of reasons.
I don't think anybody's even remotely ready, to be honest. No. Even the people that believe they're ready, like, dude. Anyhow.
I mean, I've heard of EMP attacks, right? Like that all the old ancient vehicles will continue to run, but anything that has circuits in it's going to fry in the event of an EMP, because nothing we have is hardened, and even the military doesn't have that much that's hardened against EMP. Mm-hmm. So, all right, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the 300 new homes that were just approved for development. This is a Sofer Sparn designed cube at 55th and Arapahoe, and it is supposedly going to have 300 units in this giant box. It's now been approved. It's part of the East Boulder sub-community plan. A lot of people are looking at this design and saying that's not what we voted for. We're just giant boxes. But surprise, surprise, that's what we're getting. It'll look a lot like Transit Village, is what it looks like to me.
Is Transit Village kind of like on the east side of 28th?
Yeah.
Okay.
On Pearl Street. Yep.
Yeah.
And the planning board approved it 4-3. And it's the first one under the new code. And it could set a precedent, according to this article. There was a height variation on the north side of the building, which is not visible from Arapahoe. I don't know how the north side of the building is not magically not visible from Arapahoe. Like, it's a cube.
It won't be.
How do you
the rest of it's built?
How do you not see the height variation from Arapahoe? Like, it's invisible? How does that? But all this development was supposed to be human scaled, and what you're getting is just this giant cube.
Hell yeah. Cue it up.
It'll be great for traffic.
I think cube's much more in vogue than box, And yeah, good point on traffic.
Mayor Aaron
going to be nearby. Yeah.
Mayor Aaron Brockett said, "Hideousness is in the eye of the beholder. I think it's actually a pretty tastefully designed project." I like Aaron.
Sure.
We agree on a lot. I think he's a very reasonable person. I don't agree with him at all about the structure being attractive.
Tasteful? No.
I don't think it's human size. I think it's just what you're getting, right? Like, this is what, when we say we need more housing, this is what I think the planning reserve is going to be filled with, is these buildings. And that's my biggest fear. And that brings us to the next topic, the planning reserve. So we have discussed this for many years because a lot of people call this open space when it's not. It has been earmarked for development for a long time in the Boulder master plan, and it's called a reserve, meaning for the future possible expansion of the city. Boy, a lot of people are going to be upset when that development starts to happen, and they feel like they never got a say in it, but it's been in front of council. Council is voting to I don't know, I would call it greenlight this project. And magically we're going to add 7,800 units without having a lot more traffic and overall congestion in the city right next to open space.
Yeah, it's development of it aside. This is one of those things that's going to take people aback and be like, oh, well, I never expected it. Much like CU South's development. And now people are very upset about that, but that's CU's property. This is the exact spot that you wrote your red flag open space spot on. So I'll link that in the description below too.
I said Boulder master plan. I meant Boulder Valley comp plan or comprehensive plan. And if either body, Boulder City Council or the planning board, don't agree that there's community need, it would pause this until the next plan update, roughly 5 to 10 years from now. So it just pauses it for 5 to 10 years. And if they both agree, the next step would be to create a service area expansion plan, and that plan would require approval from the planning board, city council, Boulder County Planning Commission, and Boulder and Board of County Commissioners. And even if all the approvals are secured, secure development would not occur until at least the 2030s. Okay, that's not that far away. That's 4 years from now, and it's not a question of if, it's a question of when this gets developed.
I would say wait and see how the 55th and Arapahoe development goes and what demand looks like then. And I mean, kind of cart before the horse. You've got this land. It's up your sleeve. I don't see necessarily the rush right now, especially when we're about to add so much housing on 55th and Arapahoe.
I think there's sort of a make-believe magical thinking that's happening with people where they feel like what they want is more single-family houses so they can afford one. And I wish there was more single-family houses so that people could afford to buy in Boulder. But there isn't, because we have protected Boulder with this giant donut of open space. And the last major single-family house development was probably Dakota Ridge on the far north side of town. And if you really want a single-family house for a big discount, go to Lake Valley. You can save $1 million compared to Table Mesa, but they're not going to build magically a whole bunch of cute single-family houses. They're going to build big boxes with high density, and those big boxes with high density have really crappy HOAs, like Vistoso at $900 a month. 900 and tell me that.
Check out the Candelas development. It's like $800 a month, and they're single-family, or they're like attached. You know, same thing though. They got to reserve for the cancer treatments from Candela's.
they
do, or like the Holiday neighborhood where I quite like that neighborhood, but those single family homes there are incredibly slender and tall. I've seen them in like children's movies. They just almost look comical. They're not the classical single family home that you expect to see or have come to know and love. So,
yeah, I think our council is run away and out of control with their desire to develop as much as possible, overriding their own planning board. And unfortunately, this is what we voted for, so this is what we're going to get. It's just a question of when, not if. But that's our hot takes. We'll see, and we're putting this out there for the world to listen to. So by 2030, we'll know whether we were right or wrong. As an investor, you may want to consider acquiring property in this zone, because once development begins, it's all going to be worth a lot more money. And
good point.
Every time we've seen something that's for sale, it's been so run down and beat up that it hasn't made any sense. But I've looked at things for sale as an investor in this zone. It's one of these things where I don't want development to occur, but it's so inevitable that it's dumb not to invest in this location.
Right. It's like I say that I would like the world to be different, but I'm going to live in the world that it is now. Exactly. I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot because, right? It's like,
and I'm not morally opposed to development. I just think development is...
You're pro-development.
Development just continues to erode the quality of life for people in Boulder. And yes, Boulder is expensive, just like Manhattan's expensive, which is why I lived in Brooklyn and didn't demand to live in Manhattan, because I couldn't afford to live in Manhattan. And that's just, I've done well, I've worked hard, so I can afford to live in Boulder. What I don't want to see is just the quality of life in Boulder just continue to erode with density. And then we've got tons. I mean, right now there's so much inventory for attached dwellings. It's insane, right? So if you look at, we're talking about building so much more attached dwellings, but when you look at Boulder's, we didn't do it. We just talked about single family houses, but I'll just do it really quick. Yeah. And we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to do it super fast. Overall inventory, there's 198 attached single family houses on the market, almost 200 options in the city of Boulder, and that's an increase of 14.5% from a year ago. Inventory peaked last July at 307 units, which is the most I think I've seen since 2005.
There's so much per attached. Yeah.
It's the most in a decade, and probably longer because the data on the MLS only goes back a decade, but I have data from 2005. I can go look it up. I'm pretty sure we're at 2005 levels or higher with inventory. So there is so much availability for attached dwellings. And meanwhile, pending sales, there's only 37 under contract. That's nuts. Of 200 for sale, there's 37 under contract, and there were 25 closings last month, down 24%. Do you want to know why? It's because the association dues are through the roof. And the prices are high, plus high associations.
Due to insurance, yeah.
Plus super high taxes, and guess what? The market's crashing for attached dwellings already, which may put an end to the development. It's the market that might kill the development, not the regulators. The regulators are like, yeah, build more big boxes.
Well, they're determining a need, which is, let's see 55th and Arapahoe finish up, right? Before we determine that Planning Reserve 3 needs is needed.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about our carve-outs, Hamish, and wrap up the pod because we are approaching the end of our time today. Carve-outs are things that may be completely off topic. They just happen to be top of mind for us, and we just wanted to share it. That's why we're talking about it.
You want me to go first, or?
Yeah, I want to hear. You've been sneaking in things about your solar system into every team meeting, so I want to hear kind of the culmination of the solar experience.
I'm not going to be talking about solar. Do you want to know why? Because in 2016, the UN declared that it considers the internet to be a human right. However, in 1 minute's time, I will be 24 hours without internet at this house. 24 hours. I work from home. And I hear the listeners, and actually I know quite a few listeners are also work from home. It's not like I wish I was scrolling TikTok. I can do that just fine. What I cannot do is search Epidemic Sound and get music for the videos that I'm making, or very easily put together
you could go to the office. I have an office for a reason, Hamish.
Totally an option. I will pick up my big computer, but I am so livid at this point, at this internet outage. And I went and I was this squeaky wheel for it's Metronet. I was the squeaky wheel. I requested to talk to somebody. I've been noisy. I guess somebody was drilling somewhere and they ran through the fiber optic line, which awesome. But come on, do I get not SpaceX? What's the solar or not solar? You got it, Starlink. Yeah, do I get a Starlink and just have it on hand because fiber is somehow unreliable? I very triumphantly reported that I got fiber a couple of podcasts ago and have really been enjoying it. I mean, it's been rock solid. The upload speeds, all sorts of things have been fantastic. This is the second outage in a month's time. I'm still on the same billing cycle. I'm using my computer off of my phone's hotspot. And it's just... Oh, I'm so tired of it. It's not a power outage, and I'd talk about solar, but I can't log on to my freaking solar panel because there's no internet. So I can't get you the production numbers. I've smart homed my home, which everything still has physical switches, but now I've got the outdoor lights on a timer that no longer works, and all these things, and I'm frustrated.
It could be a Carrington event, Hamish, and you could have no power and no internet.
At least it wouldn't be just me. We'd all be suffering together. But thank you for joining my rant. I'm just I'm like, I get it, things happen, but boy, we're at 24 hours now, and I liked, the internet's considered a human right. It's good that I've got a hot spot. We're making it work and all these things, but thanks, rant over. Privileged take.
I mean, at least you have solar. I couldn't get solar installed because they wanted to charge me a crazy amount to run underground, and it just didn't make economic sense at that point for the return. So I decided it's not worth it, and maybe we'll revisit an array in the future. But yeah, I'm sorry you don't have internet. I feel your pain, and in the future you could always borrow Starlink. We could set you up with an account. Okay. Let me talk about my Carveout, and hopefully Hamish will have full internet back within the next 24 hours.
So I can edit this freaking podcast.
Yeah. Well, or go to the office, Hamish. That's just easy peasy.
That might be.
Mm-hmm. I'll be there later today. We'll get to see each other in person. Okay. So my Carveout is the Alex Pretti ride, and a couple of weeks ago, North Boulder, there was a gathering. Ryan Van Duzer, who's a local YouTuber and celebrity, organized it, also a friend of mine, and so I went, and as I put into the last newsletter, I'm politically neutral. I don't like siding with Democrats or Republicans. I think they're both full of fraud and corruption, and politics is gross and dirty, and if you're not going to be actively involved in politics, I think the only ethical place to be is independent, because the amount of fraud and corruption that affects both parties is just really disturbing to me. But lately, watching the ICE actions and the way the administration has immediately gone on attack mode and supported the actions of the agents on video, that's so, like with the Nicole Good shooting, Renee Nicole Good. I thought her name was Nicole Good. Anyway, at least. Okay, so with the Good shooting, it's pretty clear the officer did get hit. Right? If you watch enough videos, if you watch both sides, okay? If you just watch left side media, you probably won't see it. But if you watch both sides media, you will see there are videos showing the officer got hit. He also shouldn't have been. He should not have been on the force after having been traumatized by another vehicle incident, and he had like 30 stitches or something. I don't know, who knows if any of that's even true. But at least you could say there might be an argument. He shouldn't have been there, and he shouldn't have walked in front of the vehicle. And I expect law enforcement to be held to a higher standard, right? And yes, she died.
Federal,
okay? No, all law enforcement needs better training and need to be held to a higher standard of accountability. I don't think he should have a hall pass on that. And the administration immediately went to defend him, which, okay, at least he did get hit by a car. Okay, at least from what I saw. With this Alex Pretti one, like, he's just armed with he had a weapon, he had a CCW, but he was disarmed and shot in the back, and he was just videotaping from the side of the street. And when I watched how the administration immediately pivoted and attacked him,
tried what they could,
claimed he shouldn't have been there with a gun, which actually he had complete right to be on a city street with a gun with his concealed carry permit. He had not drawn the gun; he was only shooting video, and then he got shot in the back. And seeing all these other ICE actions with pepper spraying people in the face, it's just gotten too far. It's too much, right? And the administration criticizing left-wing media for, making Alex Pretti look more handsome. Like, the ways they've gone to attack this guy, like, stop attacking this guy. Like, it's just gross. And I guess I'm just reached the end of, like, my tolerance, and I feel like this is just wrong. It's clear. Sometimes you got to make a stand. And at some point, you got to stop being neutral, and the actions of ICE are just too far. I can't tell you how many people, some of whom are middle-class white people, that tell me they're looking at moving out of the country because they don't like where we're headed. And one of our close friends and clients has said to me that when you look at the migration of people that left due to the country going downhill. Like the people that left Germany early, they did far better than those that waited, thinking this is going to stop. And so, and that, that's a valid point. People within even our team have laid out their milestone for when they're leaving. Like if this thing happens, they're going to leave.
Yeah, the red line.
The red line in the sand. And I fully support them in that decision, and I get it 100%. I feel like we've come really far as a country, and at the same time, we are now taking a step back from a lot of civil rights and protections that have been afforded. And I can see the other side, right? Like illegal or undocumented immigration to the United States is not okay. We need to have borders, but those people are here, and treating them in an inhumane way, particularly people that have in some cases lived here for decades. Like there's the case of the guy in Florida who was arrested outside of an IHOP by a bunch of ICE agents who claimed that he held his weed trimmer at them, and the guy has 3 U.S. Marines as sons.
Yeah. It's
just okay. Like there's just so many levels where it's gone too far and it's not okay. And so I joined that ride, and it was really a beautiful exercise in solidarity in the cycling community and the greater Boulder community. And of course it's Boulder, so we're doing it on bikes. And this guy was a cyclist, so there's this feeling of one of our own. And yes, I'm getting very emotional about this, but I think it's important to not always be neutral. And this one it was just too much. It's just wrong in every possible way. The video evidence is so clear. And then when the right-wing media wants to pull up older video evidence of him kicking a police car, I'm going to have to bleep it, Hamish. So it's effing irrelevant to what happened when he was shot in the back, and the fact that they use that
very
to try to
strange,
justify.
Yeah.
Oh no! Sorry, I expect our administration to behave better, and then of course I'm being disappointed. But I especially expect law enforcement to be properly trained and own their behavior and be accountable for their mistakes. And they shouldn't have shot Renee Good, and they should not have shot Alex Pretti. And for every one of those two, there's probably 100 stories we don't know about, that people that didn't get their story heard, but they weren't recorded, or they're sitting in some detention center without a phone, and they're being abused there. We don't even know what's going on there. So I think that it's time to hit the stop button and reevaluate.
Yeah, I think pretty much, with you. And I was moved when I saw that there was a memorial ride for it in Boulder, and I was just like, it's cool. Well, now I got to bleep, but yeah, I'm glad you were able to attend, and I liked the video you got of it. I mean, there's so much to go on about, but keeping it to the Carveout.
We try to keep to our lane, right? We keep to sometimes local and state politics, but I typically don't comment about national politics because I feel like there's so many other people that can comment on this. We don't need to have an opinion on everything. And I don't also want to lose clients that might be politically conservative or socially conservative, because we serve all. But clearly we are very liberal. By Boulder standards, I'm probably conservative.
Yeah,
but by everyone else's standards, they're probably going to think I'm liberal. And I just hate labels, right? I think they don't define a person. But at the same time, I feel like if I lose clients because I went on the Alex Pretti ride to memorialize this person's death, then I lose clients. That's fine. There's clear right and clear wrong, and there's a time to stand with community.
Yeah. I don't know how to carry the energy from that one on to wrapping up.
Well, I think we just wrap, Hamish. I think that we need to wrap. We're at the end of the podcast, so I'll do the roll call. And first and foremost, I want to thank you, dear listeners and viewers, for sticking with us at the House Einstein podcast. We were delayed last week while I was out of town. I'll talk about that maybe in the next Carveout. And you've used over 2 hours with us today, which we so deeply appreciate. Your time, your feedback and comments in person and online have been so lovely to experience. We deeply appreciate that feedback. If you'd like to check out our other social media, you'll find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. And you can also visit us at houseeinstein.com. You can sign up for our services if that interests you. We do help buyers and sellers make smart real estate decisions, mostly in Denver and Boulder and into Fort Collins, occasionally into the mountains. If you're not in our local area and want us to help you find a great agent in your location, we do that too. Just give me a call and I'm happy to talk to you about what that looks like. And I think that's about it. Thank you so much for joining us. And I guess we'll look forward to your comments.
And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.